Welcome to another episode of Shots from the Winchester podcast, where we explore leadership topics from a variety of perspectives. This podcast is brought to you by Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm. Maintaining integrity is one of the core values of leadership. Okay. I think that if we're going to have this conversation about maintaining integrity, it has to have integrity.
Yeah.
So we have like pros and cons.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to try to balance it out. Pros and cons. So I think, what do I have? 5 pros and 5 cons of integrity.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into this, though, I am drinking a popular mushroom tea,
Okay.
I should say, right? So there's 3 of them in the cafeteria right now, or in the kitchen. I tried one, did not like it. The flavor was just not, the profile was just dirt.
Okay.
Mud water for sure, right?
Beep.
Beep. But the maca is not bad, but I put honey in it to make it kind of like stand out a little bit more. Mushrooms, mushroom tea.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I've never had mushroom tea. I've had mushroom coffee.
Okay. I've had mushroom cocoa, which I like.
Yeah,
That-
I
that's
like mushrooms. Like I eat them when they're in dishes.
Yeah.
I don't have any like aversion to them.
Yeah.
Powdered mushroom drinks. I guess I don't really love like any of those like plant powder mix in your water things.
Where did this craze come from all of a sudden?
I think it's got to be on the health thing, I guess. But yeah, it's very.
so.
I like coffee.
Yeah.
I feel like coffee in its own right is kind of healthy if you're not abusing it. So like I don't need to add a mushroom powder to it to replace it. But yeah, no, I'm not an advocate, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry, unnamed brand. But open to being convinced. So sponsor the show, and
We'll talk about you.
yeah, I have no integrity. I can be bought. So yeah.
But yeah, I thought, okay, interesting. Mushroom tea.
Yeah.
You know, as far as like your brain and stuff like that, it's got lion's mane in it. You know, like it's supposed to like help you like kind of like reset your neurons or whatever. Like
Open that third eye.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, let's see if it works. You know, especially I think it's like $30 for one of those things. There's like $90 worth of like product in there. So I'm like, all right, well,
we are doing it wrong.
this is good. I know we should be selling
grounding up. Yeah, I'm just gonna say
mushrooms.
something has effects.
Yeah.
Ground up carrot powder.
Oh my God. Yeah. Grind up carrot powder and you'll be able to see further, faster, stronger, or whatever.
Brought to well, all I've got is water in here, folks.
Yeah.
But also shout out to Yeti.
Yeti's getting it. Yeah. We got our cups coming in.
We do.
Very soon.
Some cups
That's
coming
gonna be pretty cool. Did you do the design?
I did.
You did the design. Yeah.
Yeah.
You created the marketing logo design. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Putting my talents to good use.
That's what's up, man. We got to. All right. So this conversation is about maintaining integrity. And I guess a lot of people is, if you're in leadership, maintaining integrity is important, especially if you're working with a team of people, or even if you don't work with a team of people. It's important to have integrity. Otherwise, you can burn bridges, which we'll talk about in the next episode.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
You can burn bridges, by not having that integrity, because like integrity means that you do what you say. You get done, you do the job that you set out for, whatever, however that looks, like, what's your take on integrity?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's in part, like you said, doing what you say, and like being accountable to that. But in large part is probably a lot of the actions you take, regardless of the audience. So like that's the true measure of it, is the behavior you default to maybe when someone's not looking. That's a measure of like a person who has high integrity or low integrity.
Yeah,
it's like it's easy for me to, I don't know, pick up that piece of trash when my boss is looking.
Yeah.
But it's also very easy to walk past it if they're not, for some people. Like you have to kind of want to make the world a better place. To truly say that you have it, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's funny. I saw a meme, or I saw a reel yesterday on Instagram, and it was a dad. And the dad's just walking through the house, and his kids are half-assing their projects or whatever. Like one kid, he goes to throw something in the garbage can, it bounces off the ledge and it like hits the floor, but then dad starts to walk in, so he gets up and he goes and puts it in the trash. That's kind of like what I think of integrity. You know, like you have to like manage yourself.
Yeah. That's a really good point there too. Like I guess, and we'll probably get into it, is like in some, especially in a team environment, it may require coaching for folks. Like, you know, you're talking about a kid, but like some folks don't have it for whatever reason. But it can be developed. Like, you know, you might require some babysitting, or like, you know, dad walking into the room, and then a couple times you start like, it becomes like second nature. You know, dad might be watching, or like it's just become the thing I do. Like, oh, if I miss, I have to pick the thing up. So it can be learned behavior, folks. So.
Right. Well, how many of you out there are like at your computer, you're watching, like, you know, you're on your Facebook or whatever, and then your boss walks in and you switch screens. That's classic.
Well, we have a terrible setup for that. Like we have the laptop and then the two big screens, and like
everything facing out.
I feel uncomfortable being on anything except work right now at work, because I'm like, I'm definitely getting caught. I can't control 3 screens at once.
Exactly.
Let me just hit lock immediately when they walk in. No, definitely, I've been there.
All right, so let's jump into some like pros of maintaining integrity. So we have builds trust and credibility. When a person or a leader consistently acts with integrity, it fosters trust among colleagues, clients, and or teammates. This trust is critical for building long-lasting relationships in personal, professional environments. Yeah,
this one's probably just under the, like, you know, be a good person kind of clause, where like, it's hard to trust the person that, like, you know, can't be counted on to do the things they say, or like says one thing, does the complete opposite. I think this is like a non-negotiable. We're gonna get into the pros and the cons. I think some of them are, everything exists on a spectrum. You can say that, like, integrity is overall a good thing, but there are certainly, you know, varying degrees of gray when people decide if something is moral and good versus like necessary or acceptable, especially when you get into the business environment.
Exactly. I was going to say, it's a matter of perspective based on what you're doing. Your specific task or whatever your job is. It definitely can build on that.
I mean, and the second one you've got here with the positive work culture. Right? Like, I think that's, you know, that's obviously a big thing that we like preach and practice here at Greencastle, with like wanting to be transparent in your communication and your action, and allowing those things to be aligned, so that, like, you know, whether it's the leadership team or you know, middle management, like the things they're communicating to their teams, they want that to be reflected in their action on a recurring basis. I think that's the hallmark of like any healthy, or maybe not the hallmark of it. It's like the foundation of any successful organization. Like organizations that can't do that are the ones that eventually fall apart.
True.
It's just built on this lack of trust and transparency.
Right. Yeah. And if you don't have a positive workspace, it's hard to keep that integrity. It's hard to maintain that integrity. As an example, I used to work for a television company in Delaware, like a long time ago, and they had a good business model, but there was a lot of kind of issues behind the scenes there that just didn't jive well, and it was hard to continue working consistently when you see the disbalance in leadership. You know, it's hard to be consistent. It's hard to like be like, okay, I want to do my best here. You know, when you see things aren't really lining up.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's also really difficult, I think, for, you know, a business to retain employees long term, right? That stuff comes to the surface at some point. So, you know, if you're building your business or you're continuing to make decisions from a place that lacks integrity, it's, you know, whatever short-term gain there is to that, in the long term is going to be really, really negative for the health of your organization, for your team, for your employees. Going to, you know, ultimately, it's going to be hard to keep those people around.
Yeah. I mean, I'd leave.
Yeah.
if it was a situation like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Encouraging accountability.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Being able to be accountable for what you're responsible for.
Yep.
That's a huge element in maintaining integrity.
Yeah, and this is big too. Like, I think it's easy to confuse integrity with like always doing the right thing. Like, it's far from it. Like, we're obviously imperfect, and everyone has mistakes. It's having a culture that's like allows you. It's friendly to like people who admit that. Like, hey, I did the wrong thing, and like, you know, not immediately go and scorched earth policy on that person.
Right.
You need to have an organization that like accepts that and is like, hey, okay, great, like, thank you, that's the first step. Here's like the retraining and ensuring that doesn't happen again, and here's how we progress forward as an organization. But,
that's important.
you know, like, if you lack that base trust, again, to bring it, I guess, back to that trust, just that foundational bit, you're not going to have anyone who's like comfortable being accountable to their action,
or coming to you with their issues or their struggles.
You're like, okay, I just have to like you lie once, so you have to like lie to cover the lie, and you, like, it's like a butterfly effect instead of just like, man, if I would have just like owned up to like, hey, I wasn't actually stuck in traffic, I just slept in, like, sorry,
my bad.
It just starts with those small things.
You know, and it's so funny because it feels so childish. You know, it feels like, oh, I got to lie about my homework, you know, my dog ate it kind of thing, you know, like, it's just, you know, once you grow up, you got to recognize, hey, I'm not a kid anymore. I need to like be responsible like an adult, like actually like an adult for me.
It's just like, you know, you go to a meeting, there's a task that's assigned to you, and then like next week you come back to the meeting and they're like, hey, RJ, how's that task coming? And you're like, oh my God, I totally forgot. I better make up a sick excuse instead of just being like, hey, I dropped the ball on that. I'll have an update for you at our next touch point, and like following through on that. Obviously, you know, you can't repeat the mistakes over and over, but it is interesting when you find yourself in one of those cultures where you're like, oh my God,
I know, right?
I better make something up quick.
It's funny. I saw, again, another Instagram video. There was a guy, he got confronted by, it was like a panel, like a meeting, and he got confronted with like a task he couldn't do. So he just pretended to pass out.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Like, what?
Yeah. That's hilarious.
It's like, oh my God, come on. Okay, another one. So this is number 4, inspires others. Leading by example with integrity can inspire others to adopt similar values and behaviors.
I don't know. That's definitely, I think it's along those same lines where it's the culture that you establish for your team, for your organization, whatever level you're talking at, even like your family, your personal life, is like how you behave sets a standard for like how folks behave around you. Like, you know, it can be positive, it can be negative. I'm sure you're like as a new dad, you know, it's like overanalyze, maybe not at this point, right? Like, you know, but in the coming weeks and months, every action you're taking is like moving the needle. Like, hey, is this learned behavior or, you know, or not?
Right.
So, same thing, I think, when you're like in whether it's, again, business environment, any kind of like team leader, team dynamic, is like how you do anything is how that team is going to do everything.
Right. Yeah. If you come in mean mugging everybody's going to feel a little salty. So you want to make sure you're at least bringing some kind of positive energy into your team so that your team feels that and wants to relay that as well. So
exactly. It's just setting a good standard, I think, for the organization, for your teams. That's the way to get folks to like really buy in. If you know, the whole fake it till you make it thing, I don't buy in on that at all. I think it's you're playing with fire. At some point, that's going to catch you.
Oh yeah, for sure. It sometimes seems to work. You know, like some people that fake it are like the ones that are like, everybody's doing this. No one's doing this. You're just making that up. I'll lead into this. Long-term success is number 5, right? So while cutting corners might offer short-term gains, integrity helps build a strong foundation for sustainable long-term success.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, this is that idea that like the lies kind of butterfly on top of it. Yeah, I'm using an extreme example, I guess, but even just, you know, not fully transparent behavior, that's the kind of stuff that like it makes it that much easier to recommit that behavior moving forward. Just not the foundation you want to build any kind of like team dynamic on, where it's like if you set the standard that it's okay to like not, you know, provide a deliverable when you agree to, or it's okay to miss meetings, or it's okay to, you know, commit to something and not follow through on it. It infects the organization that you're managing, whatever level. Yeah, makes it that much easier for everyone around you to repeat that behavior, and it just multiplies out. Right? Like there's no organization that's going to be successful long term in that. I'm sure someone is going to unload in the comment section, be like, oh, how do these big organizations keep getting away with those mistakes or those environments? Like, right. that do will come due.
It will. Yeah. Well, we don't just do one side. We say pros and cons. So we have some cons here that we want to throw out there about maintaining integrity. Challenging in competitive environments.
This one really resonated. When you sent it over, I was like, this one, again, I like to think I have a high degree of integrity. I think everyone probably does. Maybe not. I don't know. But I like to think I do. It makes me feel good to think I do. There have been multiple instances, especially in like the business corporate world, where I've felt very like pressured to adhere to those, like that moral standpoint, where it's a very results-driven environment, almost to the point of like by any means. I don't know. I guess it's different. I guess it's how you frame it all, right? Like in the military, it's very results driven, but it's a lot easier to like justify because it's often from like a moral standpoint of like preservation of the like the team around you, like the actual people. Whereas like, you know, by any means necessary to make 1% more money for a company. You're like, that's a little more morally ambiguous for me. So no, it definitely can be challenging. I think it makes it all the more rewarding when you're able to do it and still be successful.
I agree. It's also a challenge when you are faced with things that aren't exactly up your beat, you know, like you're, things change, you know, like you may have to shift gears. You're killing it doing something, but then all of a sudden, you know, top down says, hey, listen, we gotta shift gears, do this now. So now you have to shift gears, but now that kind of throws off your integrity. You know, now you're having to pick up the ball in a way that you weren't planning to. You know, and that can be hard to shift gears like that and be like, okay, now I have to do this, you know, and maybe it's something that you're not as familiar with, you know. And so that's where I always tell people, don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to make those mistakes, because those mistakes will help you be a little bit better. Like I like to bring up D&D a lot because I like to play D&D. And
shout out to the nerds.
Shout out to the nerds. But like as a character, you can do something that you've never done before. But if you continue to do it, it becomes a skill set on your character sheet, you know? And so like if I bring it back to gamify life, you know, it's a skill on your character sheet. If you continue to try it and do it, and you may not do it well, but if you could keep doing it, it's just like riding a skateboard. If you never rode a skateboard, you fell off a few times. Riding a bike, same thing, you know?
That's a great way of looking at it, honestly. I take it back. That's my nerds comment. I like that. This next one is I think the most applicable in the consulting environment. So I guess tune in if you're a consultant or aspiring to be one. The short-term sacrifices, right? So, you know, the idea that like, hey, I'm going to temporarily put my integrity aside for a short-term win or a quick win. A lot of consulting projects are built around like a necessity for quick progress. Like either you're coming into a failing project or a very high stakes project. So there's a large demand to see progress quickly. It can make it so much easier if you're able to act like in a morally ambiguous way to achieve that. It's very easy to start saying like by any means necessary to, you know, move that needle quickly.
Right.
But to circle it back to the point earlier, like if you set the work on that foundation of like, hey, we cut corners,
Yeah.
and we'll show good integrity down the road when we have some time and breathing room.
Right.
I promise you won't.
No.
You're just going to default right to your lowest level of training.
Right.
And, you'll be cutting corners the rest of your time.
Exactly. And then people recognize that as you.
Yep.
Like I like to bring up, like in Philadelphia, some of the homes around there have soft walls. But like if you don't have the drywall up, you're just like putting some duct tape on it and painting over it.
Yeah.
Like that's your integrity right there. That's like as a contractor, now I know I'm not going to hire you. You're just going to duct tape that over and paint it,
Home flippers are some of the worst.
There's some treacherous stairs. One of my first house, the stairs to the basement was like almost like a ladder. It was crazy, but it was like really, really steep.
Yeah.
And it was like because they were trying to save room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a design feature.
Yeah.
Mine are just old, so like they weren't built to like modern code. But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's an adventure getting down my stairs. I
don't
fall down like once a week.
Yeah. You
like
fall down once a
or like,
week.
like a stumble and a catch, but you can hear it. My wife will like yell through the floors. She's like, "You good?" Like I caught myself this time.
You come in here with crutches.
One day I'll show up in a boot and be like, just missed that last step one too many times. But I got like rubber ankles, thankfully. So
my goodness.
They just bend and don't break.
You're like an action figure over here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild. 3, conflict with others. I mean, that's without a doubt. You're going to get into conflicts.
Yeah.
When it comes to that.
Yeah, and I think there's the side of it where like people can say that the people with high integrity maybe are less common sometimes in a corporate, or people who are willing to like quote unquote die on a hill. They're less and less common. So like it brings up conflict when someone is going against the group. Saying like, hey, that is a way, not the right way, and I'm going to vocalize that. Can definitely, I mean, you could be deemed like a non-culture fit in that way.
Yeah.
So there's I don't want to make having integrity sound like a thing that has no drawbacks, because you kind of have to do that calculus of like, hey, like, is this something I value so much that I'm willing to stake my like career, professional, career against? Because like sometimes it can be that major, depending on, again, what level you're at within an organization and what the decision is.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm not willing to be a part of it in this mode. Right. Yeah. That is a decision some folks, not to get super serious with it, but at times, that is something people have to figure and grapple with. So
I agree. Yeah. And conflict with others is an obvious bridge burner, if you're in a group of people, or if you're working with people, whether it's a client, you're your own business, or you're working in a business with clients for that business, you want to make sure that you're sticking to the SOP basically of whatever that business or whatever you plan for yourself. Yeah. And that type of integrity, don't let somebody else pull you out of your groove and say, hey, we could do it this way, we could cut this corner, if that's not who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and that I agree, and I think everyone in here is shaking their head. Yes, probably like, hey, that's right. It's very difficult in like the consulting world, like you said, because so much of it is like your ability to assume the culture of the organization that you are like temporarily working for. Right. And if you weren't a part of creating that culture, and there is an organization that it tolerates cut corners and potentially like things that would not meet the merit of high integrity decision, you're like, well, it's my livelihood. Like my ability to remain employed, pay the bills, depends on my ability to blend in, and that can mean like having to decide where you're going to draw those lines. It really feeds into like those last two, like you said, like here with pressure and isolation. That's very common. Yeah, that draws like, in. That person's a problem person. They're not like a the go along type. Right. They want to go against the grain. Yeah. Can definitely be, I would say it's not common per se, but it's a real thing that could happen in an extreme sense.
Oh yeah. It could be challenging for sure. With pressure and isolation, that could also lead into like some mental health problems. You don't want to get lost in that, or changed in any way, because even after like the previous job I mentioned that I was working for like a TV station down in Delaware, I felt my integrity as far as my work ethic was starting to slip, you know, which is why I went back to school, because I'm like, I want to get my bachelor's degree in what I do. And at the time, HD was starting to pick up, you know, like this dating me now, but now we're in like 8K.
Yeah. Yeah, these things go to 10, but
no.
yeah.
But yeah, at the time I was just like, I feel like I'm just like sloppily editing things and like, you know, sloppily like filming things, you know, and just like putting, you know, just whatever together. You know, I'm just like basically putting perfume on a pig, you know?
Yeah.
And I had to retrain myself. I had to regroup and retrain myself to to have more integrity. And then after that, I started my business up again. And it was way more successful the second run out than it was the first time that I did it.
Yeah.
And and it came down to like retraining myself to have the integrity that I know I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's skill like anything else, you know?
Yeah.
It's like learned behavior, you know?
Yeah.
You kind of just default to what's been successful.
Right.
And unfortunately, if you're in an organization that reinforces that behavior, whether intentionally or not,
Right.
you're just greasing the skids to kind of reinforce that behavior.
Yeah.
I think the last one is obviously the most extreme of the versions, and it's, you know, like you see backlash against someone who is, you know, demonstrating integrity or not demonstrating integrity.
Right.
Like, certainly, not great if you're in a position where like someone's considering firing you over your behavior. Like you probably, you know, whether that was, you know, a non-organizational fit or like you were the person without the integrity, whatever it is, like you have some serious soul searching to do if you're at this stage in this discussion.
Right. Yeah.
Like this is clearly not the organization for you at that point. So like,
exactly.
Maybe it's not a con. Maybe it's a good thing. You know, you've found a decision point. You can go left, go right.
Honestly, sometimes that's the journey. You know, you needed that in order to be a better you know, person for the next job or for the next situation. You know, that's where we go back to like making mistakes. You know, you made a decision, fine, sticking to your decision, fine. You know, that's nothing wrong with that. But if it doesn't match the value of what you're trying to produce for somebody, you know, it's you're not gonna win.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it is. It's I guess it's an essential thing. It's very difficult at times. Again, I think it really becomes difficult when like money comes into the situation. Unfortunately, like it's the thing that we all have to center a lot of our decisions around. You know, whether it's paying a mortgage or the vacation or that like new pool. You know, does this decision make me 1% closer to that or 1% farther from that?
Right.
Or in extreme cases, like, you know, a lot of percent closer to that. You know, I cut this one corner and I'm, you know, going to be a VP,
right?
Or, you know, whatever it is. It can be difficult to maintain. I feel like that like level of like integrity and personal like confidence to say like, hey, you know, I'm going to stick to my guns on this one. Yeah. Even if it's not going to, in the short term, be the best decision maybe for me or my livelihood. Yeah. It's
that's true. A lot of things that come into integrity too are like your brand recognition. You know, like
that's a great point.
Yeah, when you look at something, you say, you see that logo, and you recognize immediately the integrity of that brand, which is why you stick to it. You know, like it could be anything from, you know, from our place here at Greencastle to like, you know, rice-a-roni. Yeah. You know, like you like that rice. That's the one you go after when you go to the grocery store, you know?
Yeah, it's really important in like the business side of it in that regard. You're right. Because it's like human decisions and individual decisions can just have like severe consequences and severe benefit too, I guess. Yeah. Just based on, you know, how folks now associate an event with that brand. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like a really good one that we would get to bleep out and like talk about, like a brand that just totally screwed the pooch. Like
there's some like Enron.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great like BP, right? Yes. Like most of BP just like a harmless gas station, a convenience store, but like man, Man, did you see all that oil they spilled in the Gulf? Like, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Like,
And it locks in too. Like
Yeah.
you could be perfect for like 80 years.
Yeah.
And then you just do one thing wrong.
Right.
And that's what your memory is forever.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, oh yeah, that was great. You know, there was that one time where they spilled like 1 million gallons of oil. You know?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's so far-reaching.
Yeah.
Especially in like today's age, I think, where everything's like digital and accessible at your fingertips. Like
We're
that
all-
stuff can
so closely
really,
in
really
touch.
spread.
Real quick. Yeah.
Like
Real quick.
you get caught at your lowest moment, you make a human error, and it becomes your brand at that point.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It is your brand at
Yeah.
that point. You might as well just like, like right on your chest.
Yeah. That's funny.
It's like, that is who you are now. So in conclusion, maintaining integrity is generally viewed as a positive trait that builds trust, fosters accountability, and leads to long-term success. However, it does come with challenges, especially in environments that prioritize quick results or unethical gains. The balance lies in recognizing the long-term benefits of integrity while navigating short-term obstacles or conflicts.
Yeah.
I think that sounds it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. Not an easy
It
one,
really
folks.
is. Yeah, it really is. But that's integrity. I mean, I think that one of the things I like about this podcast as far as integrity goes is that we launch it every Tuesday at 11. So it's been going off every Tuesday at 11. So that's integrity right there, especially for you guys out there listening to us right now.
Yep. Shameless like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah,
button.
Yeah, and we try to bring you guys like content every week that is actionable as well. So think about this when you go about your week. As far as integrity goes, like what type of person are you? What kind of bridges are you building in your relationships, in your client relationships, in your business relationships, personal relationships, whatever that might be? Think about your integrity. Think about the person that you want to be recognized as. Just like we said, you could be a BP and spill oil, and then that's all everybody will know about you.
Yep. That's awesome.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for us. Guys, make sure you like and subscribe. Check out our episodes every week on Tuesdays at 11 o'clock, and we're out.
See you next week.